Welcome to Law Subscribed. This is your dedicated news source for all things subscriptions and the law. My name is Matthew Kurbis. I'm the subscription attorney, and I believe subscriptions can help bridge the access to justice gap and incentivize attorneys to modernize and scale their practice like never before. In this episode, I interview Kory Kelly. Kory is the founder of Legal Karma. I met Kory early in Legal Karma's journey before they pivoted into the document automation space, which is where he found the legal profession had a great need. There's a lot that can be learned from building the plane as you fly it, which is something modern-day startups have to do and lawyers are hesitant to try. While not a subscription law firm, Legal Karma is a subscription business, and Kory provided some great insight on the model that you can take and apply to your current or future subscription law firm. Thank you to my sponsors, 650 and Gavel. Links to both in the show notes and more on them later. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and nothing said is legal, ethical, or financial advice. Without further delay, here's the episode. Kory Kelly, thanks for being on Law Subscribed. Happy to have you here.
Matthew, I feel like we've known each other for so long, and it's awesome to see your podcast doing so well, and I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. Over a year, at least, maybe 2 years. I mean, we've known each other for a long time now, and so I know you. But Kory, how about you tell my audience a little bit about yourself?
Entrepreneur from Austin, Texas. Somehow found myself owning a legal tech company. I'm not a lawyer. I never went to law school, and I never have worked at a law firm. I was the lucky kid who always knew what he wanted to be when he grew up, which was someone who builds communities that helps other people. And I couldn't think of a better way to do this than a software company. And with all the needs in the legal industry, a legal tech company just seemed right. And that was kind of where Legal Karma started, was serving access to justice. And then, ended up building something really interesting that it turns out not only law firms needed, but companies and other software companies and general counsel use as well.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to get into that, why legal tech. But you said you always wanted to build communities, and that's what you're doing. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I believe if you have community, you have enough. I think that's the most important thing that we need is people, or just people like us with visions like ours and feelings like ours and opinions like ours that we can be connected with. And, I see it all the time in the legal tech community. It's kind of an organic thing that has just happened. I feel like everybody just kind of knows each other's names. There's not that many of us, but we all, are really opinionated about this one thing. To even things that are local or maybe not work related. I believe in the power of community to heal people and build people up. So we try to foster it at our company as well.
Yeah, and I can't help myself being the subscription attorney, but what is a paid community by subscription if not something that's valuable, right? So, depending on what your market situation is and what type of business you're in, when you subscribe to something, especially month to month, and you're paying something, that's kind of like being a member of a community. And there are certain subscriptions where that's all they are. They are paid communities, right? So depending on how lawyers may want to structure a subscription model for their practice, that could certainly be a way that they tackle it. And for longtime listeners will know that in Nicosia Anderson's episode, that's something that she's building and something she's talked about. But I couldn't help myself with the subscription aspect of that. But getting back to you, Kory, legal tech, what brought you into legal tech specifically? What was that journey like for you?
It was back in 2020, and it was back in actually January of 2020. So right before we all knew what the world was about to become. And I quit my job. And I was like, I'm going to go do the Austin entrepreneur thing. And I was I knew I wanted to go into law. And the first time I read that, famous LSC statistic that whatever 60 to 75% of Americans either perceive or cannot afford access to legal services, I was really piqued by that. I was like, what's going on here? So that was kind of my gateway into all of it, years ago. And then I came across a really startling statistic that said legal products are growing at a faster rate than the AmLaw 100. I think I read it in like a Forbes article, and that was really striking. And then I started doing some digging and, what is a legal product if not just a contract? I mean, that's what lawyers practice. At the end of the day, they author contracts in Microsoft Word. And so, if one can reduce it down to anything, we're producing Word documents. That's what all this debt and money and hustle is all about. Word documents. It's more than that, but that's a funny way to think about it.
Yeah.
So, and so I looked at, obviously who are the legal products that are dominating the space today. And, you obviously have LegalZoom in business, but there's tons of interesting ones that have been popping up, like Hello Prenup and Easy Exfunctions and Hello Divorce. And I mean, there's so many, I'm trying to think, like Guider Legal Services, firstbase.io, trustandwill.com, all of these companies. The first thing that they need is they need a legal product builder. And what all of them do is they try to go build it in-house. But then, as anyone knows, trying to make Microsoft Word automations is really difficult. There's a lot of companies that have been trying to do it and trying to make it really easy for their customers to do. But what ends up happening is they write some macroing language that you have to do in Microsoft Word, and it quickly looks like a coding language. So legal products is kind of what got me started into legal tech. And I think what myself and a few other, interesting folks like Bob Ambrosi have discussed in the past is the future of legal services are hyper-focused legal service providers that do one thing automatically and really well. And to pull that off, you need legal products and you need to understand legal products. And to do that, you need the software to make it happen. And that's what we've built.
And so very quickly, LSC, for those who first-time listeners and don't know, because we've mentioned it before, Legal Services Corporation. And yeah, that's a great segue, Kory, into what is Legal Karma.
Yeah. So Legal Karma is, for lawyers, we call it a legal product builder. For in-house counsel attorneys, we call it setting up guardrails. For tech companies, we call it an API where you don't have to build a doc generation solution. Really what it is under the hood is you can take any Microsoft Word document, you can upload it into our cloud-based tool and it will render in the cloud and maintain the original integrity of the Word document. And then you can actually drag and drop, automate the document, just like maybe you would in PandaDocs or any sort of other service. So under the hood, it's a Word automation tool that you can then use to create external links to put on your website so customers can draft it right off of there, or you can connect it with an integration or an API to your app so you don't have to rebuild a doc gen tool.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen a lot of, even outside of legal tech, a lot of startups trying to do too much and not focusing on one thing real well. And there's even in some ways, there's this great unbundling happening, even in the social media landscape, right? So instead of one social media platform doing everything, something's going to do live streaming really, right? And you see like those platforms, like LinkedIn doesn't even have a live streaming aspect of it. They decided we're not going to do it. But when you want to live stream on LinkedIn, here's like the 3 top things, and they'll recommend you to them. Restream, StreamYard, and maybe there's one other. I can't remember what it is, right? So like that's how you're positioning yourself, or how Legal Karma is positioning itself, is we're going to do document automation the best, whether it's you're using it directly as an attorney or you're a company and you're using it as an API. Am I getting that right?
It's an infrastructure play. Exactly right. And so for the law firms, they're sold document automation probably by their practice management solutions. They realize really quickly that it doesn't stack up to what they were told it was right before they paid. And it actually just does some sort of fill in the blank function. And then for tech companies, and so what I hear a lot of is someone with expertise, whether it's like divorce or estate planning or I don't know, it's real estate, literally anything. They're like, I'm going to start a contract based software company where any user can come here and just on demand get access to these contracts and pay a much lower fee. Um, they bring all of the expertise to that conversation and to that company. And what they don't bring is the document generation solution. And it's the first thing they run into is, oh, wow, this is actually a really big, hairy, audacious, nuanced issue. And for those that try to take it under themselves, they spend a lot of money building a Microsoft Word generation tool. And in the past, before Legal Karma, if anybody had tried to go to some of our competitors, either the API is weak and doesn't actually draft some of the, doesn't have the processing power, or the actual setup is so complicated that they might as well have just built it themselves. So Legal Karma, we took a different approach. We don't use any open source code. We have all of our software is proprietary to Legal Karma. It's all truly drag and drop. It is so simple. We could teach any paralegal or assistant or attorney or whoever how to use it in minutes. And we have a really robust API that you can just, bind data capture to your own UI and then just call our document renderer.
Yeah, and I've obviously, since we've known each other since early on in the pandemic, I've sort of seen the Legal Karma journey, and I've seen the current state of the technology. And when you say user friendly, I mean it is super user friendly. Like from what I see, and I'm curious about the design choice in this. It doesn't have depending on the user, you don't have to customize as much as you want, but you've allowed for a lot of customization in what's automated, in like what what's generated and what's automated and the drop downs and all this stuff. So, what went into that decision process? Because for someone like me, I like to customize, heavily customize. So that's really appealing to me. So why did you make that choice, and how did you decide how much customization to include and all that?
Yeah. We looked at our antiquated competitor list, and one of the benefits that they have is it's kind of the double-edged sword. It was a decision. They chose to, automate contracts in Microsoft Word. And so Microsoft Word has to run locally in order to get value from the contracts. But with that, it lets you do anything that Microsoft Word can do, but then you have to understand the really complicated macroing language. Our brand promise at Legal Karma is automate any Word contract, no matter how complex it is, all drag and drop in the cloud. And so we spend a lot of our product time trying to create, how do I say this? We do it to where the app teaches you how to perform document automation just by using the tools. The app won't let you make invalid selections, and it won't let you select things that would cause an output to be negative. I mean, we spent a lot of time perfecting that and getting that to be in a really good place. And we also wanted to offer the same competitive feature set that our other software competitors offer, which is automate any contract. But with Legal Karma, you can do it fully in the cloud. So we can automate, obviously any sort of conditional text with any sort of parameter. You can also do complex calculations. We can do interesting functions like numbers to words. We can even automate pronouns, grammar, syntax, obviously headers and footers. And it's all drag and drop. There's no macroing. There's no understanding some sort of coding language. With Legal Karma, it's kind of figured out for you.
Yeah, and especially on the lawyer side of your user base,
right?
We don't have time to figure that.
It's right.
Even if they've all adopted the subscription model, they don't have the time, to learn all the whole new language of how to do something like that. So that's appreciated. And with that, I want to, kind of transition into, the whole streamlined thing, right? Because and being as efficient with your time as possible, because that's what the subscription model is all about. I'm not billing by the hour anymore. So I need to produce a product efficiently. I don't need to redo a document every single time and bill a new client for the same exact work that I billed a prior client for. And so that's where a product like Legal Karma comes in.
Exactly right. I mean, I think if any person that gets into subscriptions, the first thing that you're going to be interested in is profit margins, which when you're doing the service-based play, that's why most law firms struggle, because they keep their best practices tribal and they grow with service instead of some sort of productized software play. That is the bane of all. And you know, that doesn't work for maybe all of them, but I do think there's a lot of them out there where a subscription model makes complete sense, but maybe it's scary and ambiguous, which I understand. But if you're going to get into legal subscriptions, you should care a lot about your profit margins. And the best way to impact your profit margins is through automations. And if at the end of the day, what you're producing is Word documents, then you should be really interested in automating the drafting of Word documents as much as you can. And it doesn't mean you don't put your strategic eye on every document that goes out. It just means huge quality of life upgrades. And even a step further, you actually start programming your tribal bespoke decisions into documents rather than them just being rogue. And remember that document we did for that client back in July of 2019? Let's open that up and pull that clause out of there and put it in this document. Like, instead of all of that, just program those clauses into the documents so they always draft and you never have to go back and rely on some sort of tribal knowledge. It puts your firm in a healthier place and it improves your profit margins.
Yeah. And you know, I'm thinking as a transactional attorney now, the sort of benefit that would provide me, since I'm not billing for my time anymore. But as a former litigator, you know, that would have been massively helpful for, you know, routine motions that we're used to filing, or maybe there's like a different type of fact pattern where it's like I once had a nail salon case. And, you know, we had to go and I had to like think like, you know, where did we, you know, have something like this ever before? And it turned out we did. So what did we do? What did I do? I sort of called up every lawyer at the firm. You know, hey, were you the one who did the nail salon case? Or were you the one who did the nail salon case? Right. But if we had strategically built, you know, the documents that we used in that case, I could have easily pulled from that and used it in my case instead of having to hunt around to try to find it. And maybe that was billable time. Maybe it wasn't. It probably wasn't. I don't remember billing for that. But then that's a bunch of wasted time that I can't even bill for. So even if you're a billable hour attorney, you know, there's value in doing what you're talking.
Correct.
Yeah. So, I mean, is there any other, you know, it's obviously, you know, you've been in this space now for quite a while. You know, are you seeing attorneys who have the subscription model, you know, using your software? Are you, you know, in what ways have you seen it been utilized? I mean, we can go into productization of legal services a little bit if you want to. I mean, just sort of anything else in that umbrella of subjects.
Yeah, we mostly see this used with flat fee agreements where they're trying to really increase their profit margins. That's probably the number one way that we see Legal Karma being used, is if, you know, it's some sort of contingency or flat fee agreement. So we do a lot of estate planning. We do a lot of real estate. We do a lot of business law, namely around like initial formation packages, which are essentially used for lead capture. So the attorneys can offer those at a more competitive rate. So we see a lot of that. And we also, you know, I think what any attorney that's savvy, my message to you would be, by the way, what tech companies are doing right now are essentially aggregating a lot of these kind of startup and company compliance documents that are, you know, necessary for a company, you know, sized 1 to 50, and just putting them in a document library for their clients to access. And then they use Legal Karma to automate the drafting of that. And so they essentially become an automated back of house solution. And, you know, obviously what the customers are comparing them to are the law firms. And why the heck, you know, once they learn that the law firms are basically in their opinion, and I think many people's opinions, potentially unscrupulously overcharging for artificial value, they really don't like that. And that's why that's why at the very beginning of this podcast, when I said legal products are growing at a faster rate than the MWA 100, I want to be really clear. Like, it's not just because like tech is coming in to shake up the industry. Like, no, this is a capitalist market. And this is how capitalist markets respond whenever there's artificial value. And so I think that's what's happening. And so we work with a lot of law firms that are selling unbundled services, which in my opinion is better than doing nothing. But if you want to win, legal tech 2030 and be one of those law firms that's poised to last, I think you have to figure out, crack the code on how do you service businesses on demand, like give them access to their documents on demand through a subscription that they charge you, that you charge them, not some sort of broken hourly model. Or soon, someone like Gusto is going to come around and basically do to the HR accounting industry what Gusto did to the accounting industry is going to happen. And it's already happening. There's like dozens of these startups that are really successful and have high valuations.
When I went solo, I pivoted from mostly litigation to a transactional-only practice. I did not have a database of documents to automate. That's why a business and employment legal document database and automation tool like 650 is super useful. I can rely on the quality of the documents in 650's database since they're putting excellent legal minds to work curating and updating their documents and automations over time. When you're not billing by the hour, outsourcing and efficiency matters, and 650 can help you scale your practice to get high-quality documents drafted in less time. Use the code LAWSubscribed at 650.com and when being onboarded to get 10% off. If you're not a business and employment attorney, or you have your own documents that you'd prefer to use, then my next sponsor, Gavel, is the automation tool for you. Gavel allows you to build shareable, client-facing workflow and document automations. In other words, Gavel helps you create a legal practice where attorneys can monetize the value they bring clients in productized form at scale via subscriptions and flat fees. Use the code LAWSubscribed at gavel.io to get 10% off an annual subscription. There's no one right way to automate and scale your practice, but with one or both of my sponsors, 650 and Gavel, you can take your subscription law firm to the next level. Links to both in the show notes. Now back to the show. Right, and especially with re-regulation in states like Arizona and Utah, you're going to see tech companies come in, and it's frankly filling the gaps that lawyers aren't trying to serve those markets because they're not able to compete on price. But to your clients, like to the clients who you're helping them who are on the flat fee agreements, they're already onto it, right? And they're starting to move in that direction. And if they've made that choice to offer flat fee services instead of by the billable hour, it's a pretty simple switch to add in a subscription element to that. Maybe change around the pricing a little bit on what they're charging for flat fee. But for example, at Subscription Attorney, my law firm, I do have a package where if you want to make any changes to an estate plan that I've helped you put together for a monthly fee, I will go in and make that amendment and do that change. And it's not going to cost you any more than what that monthly fee is, no matter how simple or complex or how many changes you want to make, right? So I'm keeping that client as a subscriber. And then I also offer other things beyond just estate plan. Right, so when they buy or sell another home, right, they get those below market flat fee rates because they're a monthly subscriber. So there are ways to adapt that what they're already doing, and it's going to be easier to transition from flat fee to subscription plus flat fee than to go from hourly to subscription or hourly to flat fee and add something there. And there's no one right way to do it. It's a new market. It's a new way to bill for legal services. And that's just one of the ways I've decided to do it. But I hope you share this episode with your clients so that they start thinking about what are ways that we can capture and make that client a lifetime client. And all the things you're talking about, the business law stuff, the real estate things. There's all these different ways to do that. I mean, for example, you've obviously chosen the subscription model for your business. Unless there's anything that I've said that you really want to touch on, I'd like to know, why you made that decision as the way that you were going to bill.
Yeah, really plain and simple, because we sell products. And the way to make the most money off of off of a digital company is to sell products at a subscription rate. That's the highest profit margins. And it's why everybody does it. And I think for law firms to pull it off, I feel they either have to do two things, because you're trying to productize the service. And so, which is doable in most cases. And, there's certainly not all of them, and you get better over time, but in most cases, we've seen that we can do a lot of it. You have to, you can either do two things. You can set up a pricing structure that kind of accommodates drafting time, and maybe at a higher rate, like you've got, and other companies do this, like Legal Shield, like you basically, if you subscribe to us for $40 a month, you can call us anytime you want, and we'll review documents for you. If we draft them, you get this discounted rate, or you can unlock unlimited drafting for this amount. And there's other things you do, like you require them enter 12-month contracts with you, because one of the first things that people say is, well, they would just sign up for a month and then quit. And so if it's a service-based model only, then that is where you run into an issue. But the obvious thing to do is just to put them on a 12-month contract for maybe the more robust requirements or drafting times. Now, the other thing that I would recommend is you do what the other tech companies are doing, which are, by the way, worth tens of millions of dollars over the last 2 years, have gone from zero to tens of billions of dollars. And that is, you create and sell legal products, which is all people want. Like, gone are the days where companies feel okay with needing I get so irritated, even with my own law firm, which I love my attorney, by the way. And I'm sure I'm a terrible client because I sell productized legal services, and I couldn't be more upset about paying a billable rate for what I know. And I know what they're doing. They're opening up templates, and they're just swapping out the freaking names in them. And then they're charging me like $5,000 for it. And it just blows my mind, and it makes me so upset. And other people are aware of this too. I'm keenly aware of it because it's what I sell and do. But it's those companies that want to get into subscription legal services, take your library with all of your bespoke decisions, AKA your comments in the Word documents, and just program them into a document drafting tool and put it on autopilot. And then once you have that expertise down, maybe that takes you 3 or 4 months, by the way. That's not real quick. But you're building something that's going to have lasting value. And then once you have that, then it's a demand gen play, not a let me hire and scale and grow a traditional boomer law firm play. Like, it's, how do I build a software company? You're building a product play, no longer this old service play, which sucks and is on its way out. So I think start by building the products, and then understand demand gen. And by the way, don't pay someone to do your demand gen. Go figure it out yourself, especially in the early days. You'll save a lot of money. There are a lot of people out there that will, I think there's a lot of money that, like, it's a huge problem for every company is, how do I get clients? Everybody has that problem. And it's actually a pretty easy problem to solve on your own. And then when you find out how much these people are charging you to do really simple work, you'll probably feel, you'll feel maybe what they feel when you charge them for really simple work.
It's so true, though. It's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so glad you said that, right? Create and sell legal products. And there's so many different ways that you could iterate on it as an attorney too. And we're attorneys are problem solvers. And so you could figure out different ways to do it. And like you said, don't pay for demand generation, especially when this is a new market. I mean, yes, there have been some attorneys offering subscriptions for the last 7 to 8 years, but they've been very niche, and it's still a growing way to bill for legal services, and there is no expert in how to generate business for this new type of payment structure, right? And depending on what markets you're targeting, are you targeting businesses? Are you targeting everyday people? And that's going to be very different. And so I would certainly be very hesitant for any lawyers listening to this, paying someone to market that type of very new style business. But if you come up with a great way, come on my podcast. Reach out to me, Kurbis@lawsubscribe.com. But with create and sell legal products, I mean, I see some of this being done. I see some of this being done in the wedding industry, but it's all like flat fee based stuff, and pay a flat fee for a document, and you get it once, kind of a thing. And here's my database, and you get it once. So like it's just screaming at me, and I want to say offer a subscription, and maybe they get access to all your documents or the different tiers, and they get access to different types of service. And in addition, maybe they get access to your documents, and if they're willing to pay you a certain amount per month, then also they get access to schedule time and talk to you about the document, or you'll come in and you'll make bespoke changes based upon their factual situation. So there are so many different ways to do it, and I'm so glad that Legal Karma is out there, because it's letting lawyers compete with your legal Zooms. I mean, essentially, that's what, if it's done well to create and sell legal products as an attorney, as a law firm, as a solo practitioner, that's what I think it allows us to do. I mean, do I have that right? I mean, not that you're going to war with LegalZoom, but I mean, in a way, kind of.
We're the LegalZoom builder. Like, we essentially go into law firms and just empower them to do exactly what LegalZoom does. And so if lawyers were entrepreneurs, which, I think I'll tell you what I've learned. I mean, we've been selling this thing for a while now, and the biggest barrier to entry to build legal products to sell online to law firms by far is the demand gen, because it's a no-brainer that they could they know they're just pulling up templates. They know that most of the time they're doing stuff that they've already done before. And it's really attractive to not do that kind of boring work anymore and just automate it. So they're on board for that. And I found that I have to leave the pricing conversation out of it. At the beginning, when I first started Legal Karma, I was like, think of all the things you could do. You could redo your pricing structure and actually start selling products and then make, way more money than you're making right now. And I noticed when I said that to them, they were less likely to buy. And I think that's because that's a really aspirational goal that is a really high barrier to entry. And that barrier to entry is demand generation, because it requires the attorney to essentially get to a place where they're having more work than they can handle, and they need to productize, and they have a consistent stream of clients where the profit margins make sense. And if you're getting them from some sort of legal client demand gen, they're really expensive. I've looked at a lot of them, and they really take advantage of lawyers getting, client introductions. I think the problem is really simple. There's a lot of online, kind of messaging tools, but maybe I don't know the rules of like solicitation, which is what it immediately gets into, which is why maybe these demand gen services exist. So there's something here. This is where it becomes an aspirational thing. Is there's like the demand gen is tricky.
Yeah. And for good and for better and for worse, because to a certain extent, I can see as a lawyer how that protects the consumers from shisty lawyers. Not that there should be shisty lawyers out there, but unfortunately there are. But yeah, I think in order to help fill that access to justice gap, there need to be some changes around the way lawyers can connect with potential clients. And I know there are some things in the works with the model rules that they're looking at making some changes there, but nothing is really that formal yet. So it's hard to predict. But I think sort of something needs to be done. But I know what you're talking.
Well, I'm really struck by that, because it seems like if I was a lawyer who is offering really affordable services because I've chosen to be ethical and take advantage of technology and not charge people by the hour for really simple work, that's news that should be advertisable. So I guess it's kind of an unintentional consequence of what, you know, is ethically a good rule. But now here, when things are different, there's kind of this almost consequence that comes out of it because you can't do the demand gen that would actually help those people. Now it almost redefines what is the unethical lawyer. I mean, in my opinion, the unethical lawyer is one who's still charging $700 an hour to open up Microsoft Word templates.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And it's like, yes, I can advertise, that I'm doing this or another subscription attorney's doing this, but it has to be sort of really expensive, broad, shout it from the rooftops kind of marketing. And I can't reach out to Kory Kelly on LinkedIn and say, hey, I'm offering this new, really cool, innovative, way to pay for legal services where it's way more affordable than you're ever going to pay for another attorney. I can't do that. I can't come out and, directly to you. But if I just sort of meet you in happenstance at some sort of networking event, and then I might be able to follow up with you, on LinkedIn or something. So like there are these weird hoops that have to be jumped through. And yes, some of the demand gen and marketing agencies, that represent lawyers, that's one of the hoops. One of the ways that you could jump through those hoops is you go through them, unfortunately. So a little bit more sausage building of the subscription model I want to get into you with. And then I have two more questions for you. On Legal Karma's website, legalkarma.io, link in the show notes, you have a 3-tiered pricing structure, essentially is what it boils down to. I mean, really, it's kind of an infinite one, but at least, you have your starter package, you have your Automation Pro, and then you have your concierge package. So you've decided to break it down into 3 choices on your website as far as your subscription is concerned. And you're not selling legal services, so maybe exactly what's in the packages won't be as applicable to lawyers who want to launch a subscription model. But you've chosen these 3. You've chosen to show only 3 options, I think, for a reason. And I want to maybe get into a little bit about what that reason was and what went into that kind of decision.
Yeah, and maybe I can kind of spin it for more of a legal audience. The first thing you want to do is a competitive analysis. And so our pricing structure is carefully curated based on looking at all of our competitors' features and offerings to make sure that when they do the math, Legal Karma is the best decision. So that's the first thing. And so you want to do that also. Secondly, the intro, you always want to make your starting package give them enough that they need to get a lot of value, but also be thin enough to where they want to up to the middle of the road package. For us, that was a really simple decision. We decided how many legal products did they want to build. $99 a month. You can build 5 legal products. It's unlimited users. It's unlimited document outlets, but you're capped at 5 automations. And then if you want to do more, which 5 contract automations is a lot. That takes a lot of time to set up. That's not real quick. And then if you want to do more, then, 5 contract automations is really good for 1 or 2 people. Then if you got a bunch of people on the team, you'll obviously need to upgrade to the middle of the road package, which is essentially just increasing the usage limits and introducing training and onboarding by our staff. And then the third tier is kind of an escape hatch tier. It's just someone who might need more than the middle of the road tier in document automations, or maybe they want us to just handle all of it for them, or maybe they want access to our API. There's kind of like the third tier is like, hey, we want to do a lot of business with you as a company, and that pricing is going to be custom because it's just it varies.
Yeah. And so that makes me think of another question, and that is, if I'm if I'm a law firm and I'm looking at Legal Karma and I'm thinking, yes, sign me up. But maybe, how do I actually put in the automations? Do I make an associate or a paralegal do it? Is that something Legal Karma could do for me? What is that like?
Yeah, either or. We have a ton of training videos on the resources page on our website that you can look, and we lay out exactly how to do all of those, how to use Legal Karma. So it's really simple. It's very drag and drop. But some people run the cost analysis in their head and they're like, well, I bill, this much per hour. And it makes more sense for me to just keep working and then pay you to do the contract automations. So we hear that sometimes.
And my last question for you, Kory, Is a hot dog a sandwich, and why?
Well, I'm vegan, so I don't eat hot dogs.
That's okay. What you don't have to eat hot dogs to answer my question.
I was trying to think the easy way out. Is a hot dog a sandwich? Well, banh mi is a sandwich, and it's on a similar kind of hoagie bun. So I'm gonna say, yeah, it's a sandwich.
Okay. All right. You heard it here, folks. And Kory Kelly says a hot dog is a sandwich. All right. Well, Kory, thank you so much for coming on Law Subscribed. Obviously all the links in the show notes, but if somebody wants to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kory Kelly, or you can email me at Kory, Kory, at legalkarma.io.
All right, Kory, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks again to 650 and Gavel for sponsoring this show. The best way for others to discover this show is for you to share it with someone you think would find a value from it. Follow me on LinkedIn, since that's where I'm most active on social media, and click the bell towards the top right of my profile to get notified about all of my posts about this podcast and everything else I think is valuable for you to see. To get in touch, message me on LinkedIn or email kurbis@lawsubscribed.com. All links are in the show notes. Until next time, this is Matthew Kurbis with Law Subscribed.